I think we are really fortunate to have an eminent panel out here with distinguished leaders with rich and wide variety of expertise and experience across R&D, business and operational excellence. And over the next 1 hour, we'll try and focus on what does it really mean to drive cross-BU collaboration out of the India Center, and what are its far-reaching business impacts globally, benefits and motivation to run cross-BU collaboration, successful ways of implementing some of these initiatives, and an insight into challenges and key obstacles that one should foresee while implementing cross-BU collaboration, and best practices that each one of you have seen within your organization, and that could act as recommendations for the audience out here. So before we start, I would like to request you to give a quick round of introduction about yourself, your organization, and then I think we can get to the main set of questions.
Sure. Thanks a lot. The first test of technology is whether everybody can hear me in the room. Back? Can everybody hear? No? It could be better. Is this better? Good. So first of all, thank you. And being positioned just after lunch is a risky proposition, but seeing a full room of people, it's a great opportunity to have engaging dialogue with you. My name is Anmol Nautiyal and I work in IBM. I look after the smarter workforce solutions area. My focus is to build technology solutions, those enable individuals and teams to collaborate and work with each other better. I also take care of a division where we build talent management software and solutions. Whole objective is to help enterprises interact and bring the best fit individuals, candidates into the organization and keep them performing, keep them at the level of highest performance. So a suite of these products, and that's what becomes my focus. And I'm pretty excited to be part of today where the collaboration is the theme and looking forward to the opportunity to engage with you.
Hi everybody, welcome to this session. My name is Srinath Shetilgata. I'm the Vice President and Country Head for PACE in India. PACE is a set-top box and gateway company. So all of you have TVs in your drawing room, and if you have a set-top box, there can be a possibility that if you see the backside of the box, it could be marked as manufactured by PACE. We're in a B2B business, so the branding is never on the front of the box. So just having a conversation over lunch, and we said we are at the back of the box, so B2B is back to back, so that's where we are. And I think today's session is going to be interesting because just before we walked in, we were talking about how to make the session a bit lively. And the moment we said cross BU, we said anything which is cross will not be perfect, and there's always a risk of what we'll end up with. Look at the botanists, they cross a mango with a fruit with another fruit. It'll either be a mango or the other fruit. So it's always going to be a challenge how to recognize a cross-BU effort or result. So let's see where it takes us as we go through this session. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me at the back? So my name is Uresh Vahalia and I'm from EMC. I moved to India about 2 years ago after spending 30 years in US, and I'm here for another year or so. I came to India for a unique opportunity to build a truly cutting-edge product completely out of India, and expect to see the first delivery done before I go back. While doing that, I'm also working with the rest of the business units in EMC India, trying to see how we can move up the value chain and how we can leverage each other to deliver unique value to the company. I slightly disagree with your assessment about everything being cross being imperfect, because I think some of the best things come out of cross-pollination. New things come out of genetic mutations and crossbreeding and so on. So I think we have a lot of opportunity to exploit that.
Good afternoon. My name is Krishna Prasad. I head the global R&D center for a company called Terex, also responsible for India sourcing. Unlike some of my colleagues here, we are into a completely different kind of business. It is heavy equipment, heavy engineering, heavy material handling, off-highway and earth-moving equipment. And it's a Westport, Connecticut headquartered company, but we have operations all across the world. And yeah, I think cross-BU collaboration is always a challenge as well as an opportunity. And I definitely agree with my colleague here that it always leads to some good stuff with cross-BU collaboration.
Hi, I'm Rakesh from Citrix. Is it working? Okay, great. So I joined Citrix originally as Netscaler, a startup way back in 2000, heading product management for Citrix, and then subsequently came to India initially for a year at that time to set up the center here. And so from the very beginning, kind of cross-BU or working across all the way from the customers to the product delivery, testing, and the next release was part of our charter, because it was not typical, at least in 2000, for the product management guy to come and set up the India center. I think it's been a great journey, and we'll share some of the things. Cross-BU is very important to us over the years, and this year we are working with Zinnov on a very specific defined initiative where we are making sure that all the BU alignment and metrics, etc., fall in place. I think many of you follow the Dilbert cartoons, might know the character Wally, who's always sitting around in his cubicle and not doing anything. And every time he's asked, what are you doing? He says, no, I'm working on the other project. So there's always some challenge in terms of metrics and in terms of making sure that cross-BU doesn't become a synonym for not doing or not being aggressive enough. But whatever your view is on, as we talked about cross-mango and pollination, cross-pollination, cross-dressing, whatever, I'm hoping it will be a lively session. And I think I've already gained a lot, because by talking to Srinath, now I know that when I'm recording my program in one room and I want to watch it in my bedroom, who to go with the feature request. So hopefully this session will be useful to you as well.
Great. Thanks for the round of introduction, panelists. To begin with, I think cross-BU collaboration is a wide open topic, and I think it has a different context to different organizations. Would like to understand from each one of you, how do you view cross-BU within your organization? For example, is it just within the product BUs, or does it cut across functions, or beyond the regional boundaries? What does cross-BU really mean, Anmol?
Sure. So that's a loaded question, like too many dimensions in the same question. But as we look at so in the simplification of piece, when we start looking at what is cross-BU and why is cross-BU. So when we see what is cross-BU in our context, in our organization, we build technology, we build products, we build solutions which our customers are looking for, and a lot of our organization is segmented by the technology division, so the product or go-to-market kind of a division. Now, if you really look at the landscape of technology, look at what's happening, what has been happening in the last 2 decades. It's all about back-end optimization. It's all about plumbing databases, building app servers, creating back-end far more efficient so that enterprises can derive value out of it. And a lot of the organization is being structured around creating those technologies, creating those divisions. And today is the era of cusp, and when we look at next 2 decades, all the new opportunity seems to be coming from front-end digitization, and all in the era of where the engagement, interaction, where ability to look at front-end engagement technologies is becoming far more oriented. So if you really look at industry, where industry is moving in, social, cloud, mobile, and analytics becomes the key drivers. And when you look at some of these new technology areas, sometimes they are not intersected by division, they impact everybody. Their technology is being applicable across. So when we start looking at our customer set, when we start looking at where we are delivering this value to, and it starts emerging that rather than being in a technology set, the new evolution, the new area, the new drivers of technologies are intersecting across the pieces. And for us, it becomes extremely critical that how do we realize these divisions, these teams, either in the form of geographical, either in the form of the way they are building technology from the intersection point of view, how they come together and realize the benefit, create and capture the advantage and the value which comes from the intersecting new technologies, and thereby create a new value in it. So the value of collaboration and cross BU becomes more prominent because of the themic changes which is happening in the backdrop. So for us, as we look at India division, and one of the intersecting view in India becomes is a lot of times India and a lot of R&D centers and technology centers will become a microcosm of what the world or the global organization is. And the opportunity becomes far more critical, far more prominent, far more imminent in India by being together, opportunity to really intersect around these divisions and create those value points or amplification points where we can create next generation value. So that becomes the context of cross BU for us. But that is just what the cross BU means. But then the second piece is why cross BU, and clearly answer depends upon which organization you belong to, but largely it is the end value, it is the end game. And end game is all about customer value, end game is all about market positioning, end game is all about gaining market share, but it could be many prospects. But in the context of the organization you are, the end game and why cross BU is really critical to identify. And that's what our objective is, to really look at, understand the new areas of value pools between technology intersect, identified the way businesses can be built around it, and new value can be generated out for our clients in the industry, in the sectors where we are delivering the pieces.
Okay, great. Srinath, so being a box manufacturer, how do you see cross-BU? Where does it cut within your organization?
If I give you an example, we had centers, global R&D centers in France, UK, India, and the US. There was a time in the company where each center was driving their regions, and we just took an inventory and we realized we were creating a high-definition personal video recorder using different chipsets, different, let's say, platforms, and selling it to different parts of the world. But finally, the box did one thing, which was play back your audio, video, and record whatever you're watching on the TV. So there, I think, was an opportunity for the company to look at cross-regional collaboration. So in our context, there are two BUs in the company, one for the Americas and the rest is, which is outside of Americas, which we call as international. So what we did was we brought together a common hardware platform group, which basically looked at how we can leverage from a single platform a product that can be sold to any part of the world with the local flavors. Simple example with the company today, earlier we were duplicating things, we were reinventing things, and the collaboration was definitely missing. So today there is a kind of mandate that if you're creating something for the Indian market, there's a Russian market, there is an African market, a lot of these things can be actually reused. The customer buying pattern, in our case it's the B2B pay TV operators. In a region, the buying pattern is more or less the same. The region where we live, it's all price, price and price. It's extremely price sensitive. So we have to make a product which is fit for purpose. So keeping this as a theme, we started looking at, can each of the regions focus on certain segments of the market, create a platform and a solution. So I think this morning Ravi Venkatesan said, if you can win in India, you can win everywhere. So what we're doing is, for the low end of the market, which is a standard definition, plain vanilla Zapper box, India is creating a platform. We started shipping products in the country. The same thing can now be kind of used in the African markets or Eastern European markets. And that clearly brings in the kind of cost savings that every company is looking for today. The next thing is, how can you improve your efficiencies when you're creating a single platform and milking the cow. So I think overall, when you have different geographies with different transmission standards, certain things can be common. I'll give another example. When you buy a high definition set-top box, it comes with accessories. There's an HDMI cable, which all of you may have seen, which connects to the HD TV to the box. In India, we were shipping boxes with 1.2 meters or 1.5 meter length. In the US, everything is big, so 2 meters length. In Europe, it was 1.8 meter length. Somebody woke up and said, what if we were to just say 2 meters is the standard, a slightly longer cable, nobody's going to complain in India or Europe. Then you go with 2 source supply, you get the leveraging on your supply chain. As simple as this. Certain designs of the HDMI, say, let's say the hardware in the box, we're creating 4 different designs in the company. each one doing exactly the same, but not leveraging on it. So I think the cross BU or the cross regional R&D centers, if they talk to each other, buying 25 or 30 million HDMI cable of 2 meter length, probably get a better price as opposed to buying 3 different sizes, because the moment it is non-standard anywhere in the world, there's a new price list for it. The moment you go by the catalog, then it's plain, by the book. So I think from a set-top box or a residential gateway perspective, I would say regional collaboration makes sense, because one, you can copy-paste, two, you can reuse as much as possible, three, the supply chain leveraging what you can do, where you can have a scale of economy and get a better, let's say, pricing. And in a price-sensitive market like India, every rupee counts, more so now with the dollar hitting a 60. So I think that's what I would like to say.
That's a great aspect, a different aspect to cross-BU collaboration. Uresh, you have identified cross-BU interlock as one of your strategic priorities at EMC. How do you see cross-BU collaboration within the context of EMC?
So if you look at EMC in India, we have about 5,000 engineers located in 2 buildings right next to each other. And every single major division of EMC, be it a product division, be it a services division, be it something like IT, has presence in India. All of us are together, and the heads of each of these divisions in India sit in a common staff meeting with SARB every week. We go drinking together, we work together, and there's a lot of camaraderie already built in. Right? So this gives us a very unique opportunity. In many ways, we are the melting pot of EMC, where everything comes together. Now, as Anmol said, by default, we are structured like our parents. The whole org structure reflects the org structure in US, and the silos reflect those of US also. At the same time, because of the constant interaction, camaraderie, etc., that's built in, it became natural for us to start breaking these barriers down and exploring synergies with each other. And really, cross-BU collaboration is all about making the whole greater than the sum of its parts. Right? How do we exploit common needs, common problems, common solutions? If something is solved in one BU, can the solution apply everywhere else? Can we build common competencies and expertise so that everything is not very fragmented? So as we'll go on further, I'll talk about a few examples, but I think those are some of the central themes of cross-BU collaboration for us.
Sure. Dr. Prasad, what about your organization? You are a heavy equipment manufacturer cutting across multiple functions, mechanical, hardware, software, and so on. Yeah. How do you see cross-BU within your organization?
I think within Terex, as he mentioned, we are in a fantastic position because we are the only global R&D center. So we get the view of how products are being, engineered, developed in the different regions like the North Americas, the Europes, and so on. We view it from 2 points of view. One is, how do we make sure that the knowledge gets exchanged? There is collaboration because of knowledge, and if there is knowledge sharing, definitely it impacts efficiency. We can do things faster, we can learn the mistakes from each other. That is one aspect. But I think, going by the theme of, let's say, today's topic, we are also looking at possibilities of increasing the revenue, and how that is being done is, today for many of our products, our the North American market or the European market is pretty much flat. Okay, in some cases we are growing, but the growth is seen in other regions. And when it is in other regions, there is always this possibility that a European product can be maybe adapted to India, or Brazil or China, or a North American product, but never exactly the same. So what we are seeing is, we have to take some good parts of Europe, some good parts of North America, and then try to bundle this as the product needed for this market. So it is really impacting revenue, not just knowledge sharing and increasing the efficiency. And that's where we are seeing a huge amount of value, not only in our own country, but in emerging markets.
Great. Rakesh, you mentioned about cross-BU initiatives as a long-term strategy in your organization. You have been practicing it for quite a while now. How do you see, is it different from some of the responses we received so far?
No, I think a lot of excellent points already made. I think Uresh talked about the opportunities that we have here in India. And sometimes we also have challenges because someone within a silo looking at us 10,000 miles away might feel that if we let them kind of run on their own, who knows what they'll do. So I think it's great for India from that perspective, both in opportunity and challenges. But I think the way I look at cross-BU is also, I think, as Anmol put it, looking at it from the end point. After all, why is the BU there? The BU is there to help put in greater focus, to bring in greater accountability, perhaps to bring excellence in a particular field of endeavor. But once you come in from the customer's point of view, so let's say you buy this great European car, which is known for having the best engines in the world. But the customer will assume that even though if the electronics are not supposed to be best in the world, they have all been built by one team, the engine, the electronics, the chassis, everything. So once you bring in the customer perspective, that is when cross-BU becomes very relevant because the customers they always expect that everything is cross-BU. So from their point of view, it's not really a choice. They would actually be shocked that we are sitting here talking about whether the BUs should work together or not. So that is, I think, definitely one point of view. Customer view is also important because when you lay out the matrix of all the BU and all the possibilities, it's a huge matrix. How do you prioritize? How do you bring in reality? Again, bringing the outside in perspective sometimes helps.
Sure.
So for us, cross-BU is on all levels. It's in how we obviously work internationally, how we work with our local sales teams in APAC, in EMEA, and here, how we work closely between R&D and tech support, how do the two groups support each other. But primarily what I'll talk about today is the different R&D silos and how to get them to work together. And sometimes when budgets are common, attentions are common, and they have to be shared.
Yeah.
And in the US we used to talk about the Marines, kind of a part of the armed forces, and this general listening to a captain talk about how to fight with the Russians who are the enemy. So at the end the general says, son, very great presentation on our strategy. But as a Marine, let me tell you, the real enemy is not the Russians. The Russians are just the adversary. The enemy for us is the army. So,
Great point. I'll start with you again, Rakesh. So, you did talk about, the benefits that the organization can get. How do you motivate people within individual silos of BUs, to go beyond their regular functions, regular duties, to collaborate, to innovate? How do you keep them pushing consistently?
So I think there are three elements, at least from our perspective, which are important. The first perspective is the customer perspective, that you need a team which has great visibility into the customers, either directly or through having product management. So in my view, having product management in India is very important from that perspective. Having executive briefing centers here, visits of customers, or if that is not working, getting your engineers on calls with customers in the US and Europe or wherever is very important. Bringing in the customer perspective, the first most important element, because the customers don't talk about one silo, they talk about everything.
Absolutely.
So when you hear the customers talk, then the engineer who might have said, okay, I will not look at virtualization because my thing is only networking, will certainly have an interest in getting in. That's the first one. The second one is global consonance. And I use the word consonance rather than alignment because too much push is put on alignment, and we will not have complete alignment between different locations. Anyone who's trying to get an alignment with his wife knows how difficult alignment can be, right? Consonance is, we are more or less heading in the same direction. And I think that is very important to get at a global level to convince that, it might not be exactly what you want us to do, but it's kind of in the same direction. I think if you are able to get those two in place, then you get to kind of the difficult part, which is the org part, hiring the right people, putting a lot of emphasis on verbal skills, on written communication skills for these global organizations, putting in all the incentives, making sure your innovation awards are more horizontal. Every time you are doing an internal tech show, make sure that starts with a cross-BU pavilion, and you are recognizing all of those things. So the organizational ones definitely take a long time. We are not there all the way. I think if I had my world, there will be quarterly objectives tied to that. Our HR tools would recognize some more matrices. A lot of work still there. But at least as a management team, You can do a lot through awareness, through learning. We have an internal program where instead of getting external trainers, we have identified, 50 gurus who are incented, in some small ways to go out and teach.
When we first started 2 years ago to look at transforming the culture and organization of the India Center for EMC, cross-BU was identified as one of the key pillars of that activity. And I think initially we started with sort of misguided and narrow focus. We focused on building new features, new products, etc., and those were the only things that were considered valuable. How can we combine work of two BUs to come up with something completely new? And while that is very important, the opportunities for doing that are not necessarily all that many, and you can get a lot more rewards by broadening your perspective on cross-BU collaboration. So over the last year or so, we started refocusing, and a few different areas we thought were really important, and they've started yielding tremendous results. So first was around TCE, which is total customer experience. We have roughly equal penetration of services and product units in EMC India. And as a result of that, there are many cases where the same product, the services organization is handling the escalations for it, and the product unit is doing the sustaining work for it. Previously, these units all did it in their own silos, and any connection between those two organizations went all the way up to the headquarters. What we started doing was bringing those people together. When a new release comes out, can the local product team help bring the services team up to speed? Can the services team train the product teams on, hey, these are the things that break most often, or these are the things we need help with most often, what can you do about it? Right? This activity has started paying tremendous dividends. And it started building relationships, and once you start building relationships between the services folks and the product folks, the problems are handled so much more effectively. The second area that we've seen very great dividends are around common competencies. So, as most of you will know, if you look at any big organization which has got multiple products, every product has a test team. In today's world, every product needs to worry about security. Every product needs some sort of mobile interfaces. And up until very recently, all of those things were handled by those products in their own silos. Now, in US, it's different. There's enough critical mass so that you can build expertise, you can build local experts in each of these products and all. In India, as such, you're somewhat removed from the situation, and you need to work extra hard to build these things. At the same time, each of the products, let's say the test teams, do have some people who are really interested in advancing the state of the art and are doing things in their own little silos. By bringing all of them together as a community of test developers for all products, you start getting these ideas flowing, you start getting interchanges between them. What's working well in one group gets picked up by another, and so on. And there are tremendous dividends, partly in just new ideas for the product, partly in these folks feeling more part of a community, more motivated, etc. We did that with tests, we did that with product security, and recently we started doing that with mobility, creating a central pool of mobile computing experts who understand the standards, help each other out, raise the awareness of mobility throughout the company, and so on. And they conducted a set of mobile computing workshops, and the workshops drew such a large audience. Like each of them had about 200 people coming in for an Android class and so on, all of them done by volunteers. So by recognizing that the cross-BU collaboration is about more than just specific point solutions or product features, you can do a lot more.
Sure, sure.
Srinath, what are your thoughts on total customer experience, or getting that global consonance within the different views of functional areas?
In PACE, we say we put the customer at the heart of everything, and what it did was in two ways. One is top-down approach and bottom-up approach. In the top-down approach, the CEO basically said, for hardware and software, these are the two major categories. We'll have cross-site experts coming together, working together, and that's more like a dictum coming from top-down. At a bottom-up approach, what we did was, in Bangalore, we have people working across, let's say, regional boundaries and across continents. So we created a project management forum where people dial in via video conference from UK, France, and we have the project managers in India. Every month there's a theme, they talk to each other. A lot of learning comes through that. Some mistakes that are happening as we speak can be stopped, and some mistake that's going to occur can also be stopped. So that kind of helped the project management forum to work together. There's another architect forum where the software and the hardware architects across the sites come together again, and they try to see how they deal with some of the issues that somebody's already seen. One of the biggest complaints we hear from our partners is, the India site has already got an answer from us. Your French guys are asking the same thing. I'm sure the UK guys will be not far behind. And many times within India, there are 3 desks away or 3 cubicles away. Somebody has already asked the partner side how to fix a bug. And then we see at some point in time, the same question is being relayed back to them. So kind of creating wiki pages, kind of creating a forum where people first consult their neighbors with similar subject matter expertise within the site. If they can't find it, go to the other sites. The last resort is going to your partners. Right? From a motivation perspective, we acquired a company which brought in some new capabilities, and acquisition always brings with it 2 stories. One is your ability to create new value proposition to the customer. The other one is how do you make sure that the 1 + 1 is equal to 2 becomes 1 + 1 greater than 2. So in one of the recent situations, a new acquisition that we made brought in a new paradigm shift to a business where we could offer a full solution to the India cable market. The biggest challenge there for the sales team was, how do you share the profit? Who gets what part of the revenue? From a financial perspective, the CFO only believes in one thing: what is the incorporation or the PLC making? From SBU level, the sales guys are driven by their numbers. So while you're trying to bring a collaboration saying we'll sell an end-to-end solution, each of the silos obviously have numbers to deliver, and they will go after their numbers. So that's again where the top-down approach helps in saying it doesn't matter what you make or what the other BU makes, as long as collectively we make X dollars, it's fine. It's like within the family, if the money stays, that's more important. Let's not have the neighbor sharing the part of the meal. So I think they brought in some sales incentive schemes, and the message was, no matter you brought the customer to the table or the other side brought the customer to the table, as long as there's a customer for pace, it doesn't matter. It's not been easy because numbers changes everybody's perspective. Once you see the green bill like a counter in front of you running numbers month on month, some of this collaboration, the having a relationship with the other side and building rapport sometimes takes a backseat. So I think constantly we have to start looking at innovative ways to keep the teams together. The numbers have to be driven because every company has to deliver value to its shareholders. Having said that, keeping the customer at the heart of the business, simplify the equation within the company, create motivation as well as incentive schemes so that from a customer perspective, they don't see who's doing what, they get a full solution.
Great. Anmol, you wear 3 different hats in your role at IBM.
Correct.
How do you see it differently from rest of the panel out here when it comes to motivating people, getting work done?
So I think a lot of points got covered. In my perspective, once we have understood the purpose, what is this cross-BU innovation for? Then the next question comes is, what do I do as a cross-BU innovation? What do I identify? And as a lot of us were discussing before, really identifying a purposeful area which will lead into new business, client value, or whatever the company is standing for would be the second step. But then really institutionalizing it inside your organization, that becomes the real leadership challenge in terms of how do you ensure that organization from top to down really believes in what needs to be done, and many aspects were covered by the members here. But right from the start of leadership voice, of ensuring and communicating and keeping priority as there is new value, there is new pool which can be generated by this, and therefore everybody needs to put it as an objective for themselves. And it's just by the voice is one piece that needs to be institutionalized by rituals in the organization. And as we heard some of the examples before, rituals in the organizations could be awards, could be in terms of institutionalized bandwidth which gets allocated in prioritization to these kind of ideas. Those are coming from cross-BU innovations. And I think some of the practices in one form or another we all try to involve through that piece. And then how do you really create organization level coaching, because there's a lot of cultural aspect in it. it is not easy to collaborate. And being in India, it's not easy to give your seat to somebody else, not being in the queue. It's very difficult to really be collaborative and trying to find out new value. So how do you culturally incentivize individuals to really be in that mode? And that can be done by certainly really adopting few rituals. And some of the rituals in our organizations, we take some of our senior most technical leaders, allocates a little bit of bandwidth with them, and create a kind of program by which individuals are incentivized, senior technical people, those want to aspire into that area, they come together, they try to do projects with them, do a little bit of show and tell, create little bit of organizational reputation around it. And that creates a little bit of institutionalizing of some of these rituals, just make the organization starts believing that this is valuable, this is something which needs to be adopted, this is something which needs to be built. But then the third point, sorry to take it, I'll take 2 more minutes, which is, but the other thing which is happening in the organization, as we all see, the world is changing in the way organizations were run before and the organizations are running now, with more and more millennials coming into the organization. Those start their day by posting things on Facebook and end on Twitter. The modes and means of collaboration, individuals and teams are changing very fast. And if we do not enable them by providing them right tools in the enterprise, in your company, that becomes a key inhibitor. So how do you create a platform, how do you create the tool which makes it easier for them to be excited to be involved by exchanging ideas, working with each other, sharing pieces, but right from the bottom. I mean, just the thought is not, and as earlier we were talking about, it is not just the top, which is identifying 2 areas, prioritization, incentivizing, but really looking at how the wisdom of crowds will start emerging, because some of the technical innovations, some of the new values could generally be if we enable the larger crowds and give them tools to work with each other, to really share ideas, build pieces. So some of these things become imperative in an organization. In today's world, we cannot live where we do not enable organization with some of these basic tools. They need to have social enterprise network where people have ability to really communicate, engage, share ideas, build communities, and do things. And as we saw some of the examples, once these crowds come together, they create a different level of ideation and pieces. And then we institutionalize some of them on top of it by adopting few rituals, which then makes it far more systemic, far more value driven, and then see some of the successes out of it.
Sure. Rakesh, I'm sure it's not an easy path. There definitely seem to be a lot of challenges. In some of our earlier discussions, we did have questions like, where do we start with? How do we go about it? Can we allocate 20% of the resources, time, and make it available for cross-BU collaboration? So, for the benefit of the audience, could you highlight, some of the challenges that one should foresee when it comes to, implementing cross-BU, and what are some of the successful ways of tackling these obstacles as you have seen in your organization?
So let me hit upon a few of the challenges. I think the first challenge is, while as we see in this discussion, cross-BU seems to be the kind of the obvious thing to do, human beings, or we are intuitively more tuned to seeing excellence in narrower parameters, right? So how many of you know, for example, who won the Wimbledon men's singles this time? Any show of hands? Okay, around a third of the people. And how many of you know who won the mixed doubles? Okay, well, a little disappointing, not even one hand. But for all you know, for the doubles people, for the mixed doubles people to coordinate, to get there, to win, might have bone more effort. But our intuition, our training is about, the fastest compiler, the best engine, all the strongest, fastest car, tractor, whatever it is, right? And that is how most of our organizations also work. So while it might seem obvious that we'll go cross BU and everyone will see the big win, it's not that way. And so as Uresh pointed out, it's good to pick up some of the things initially where you see the biggest impact possible. Instead of maybe trying to bring 2 groups together to build a new product, let's see that if the tech support guys are not talking enough to engineering, that is where the biggest bang for the buck might be. And so build on those obvious successes, because the bar for success in cross-BU is much higher in many ways than it is in siloed products. So that is kind of the first one. The second one is customer centricity. We talked about how important it is. Still, if you look at the global model over the last 20, 30 years, everyone has accepted that Indians can do engineering, right? They can write some software, they can more or less test it well. But once you reach the next level, it is a step. It's not necessarily a gradual thing. When it comes to bringing product management to India, bringing more customer centricity to India, it might be a little easier if you have a lot of customers in India. But if most of your customers are global, like it is true for many of us, that is a bridge to cross as well. And that has to be done again gradually. Bring in some of the easier tasks, maybe bring in technical marketing first, bring in technical product management first, go in and engage as we did with customers in Korea who not only have unique requirements, but are a big market. So then you kind of build confidence. And so now, you know, we have whatever 15 product managers, but it went one by one by one. It didn't really go that in one shot we hired a director of product management and built a big group. So I think that is kind of the second point. And I think the third one that will be important, and I mentioned earlier also, in terms of global consonance. And that is again built one by one. Whatever be the advantages of doing cross BU or doing engineering in India, not everyone will look at it the same way around the world. So you have to tune your pitch accordingly, right? No delivery manager anywhere in the world goes and says, oh, I'll go and save some money today. They are all worried about getting products faster, better to their customers. So to figure out what the language is for each person and using that to build the global consonance, and it's not a kind of a one-time job, it's a weekly job for some of us. So I think those are kind of some of the 3 points I will talk about. Understanding that it is more difficult than individual success, that customer centricity is a step and not a gradual thing that will happen, and so on.
Great, great. Dr. Prasad, you know, within your organization, do you see similar set of challenges? And, you know, if I would ask you to prioritize, you know, which comes first when it comes to solving some of this?
No,
how do you order them?
Yeah, no, I think it is somewhat similar. Most often, it may end up as differing priorities for the business units. So that challenge we definitely need to go through. But, you know, from our point of view, most often we see that we definitely need one champion BU. So there needs to be one champion for the idea for sure, and there also needs to be one champion BU because all three cannot lead, and the other two cannot put brakes. So we need one champion, and that's what we have seen, that as long as there is one champion BU who's probably, I don't know, whose stakes could be higher than the others, that's when I think things will start rolling. If it is not a priority for two others, I think the result is very, very obvious. You know, it will slowly, you know, kind of crumble.
Okay. Uresh, you know, what would be your takeaways for, let's say, solving some of these obstacles? I think, you know, we have been covering some of these points very well between Rakesh and Dr. Prasad, but do you have a different perspective when it comes to solving some of the day-to-day challenges that the team faces on the ground?
Sure. So, just to articulate some of these problems a little differently, the key challenges I see are, first of all, the silos. Right? The silos exist not only over here, they exist in the parent companies and probably even more strongly in the parent companies. And the way businesses are structured, the way business units and divisions are structured, they have to focus on and worry about their own revenue, as a couple of people mentioned over here. They have to worry about their own product, their own revenue, and anything cross BU becomes an afterthought. And not just here, but even back in headquarters. The second thing that compounds it is perhaps because the software industry in India grew out of the services model first and so on, the prevalent mode of thinking is a tell-do mode. Somebody is going to tell us what to do, we're going to do it. And what each engineer, each little group is being told is to do stuff in their own silos, to write their own features, test their own stuff, etc. Nobody is telling people to look across the BUs. Nobody is telling people to collaborate. Yes, we shouldn't need to be told, but when you look at large masses of engineers, they do need. And hence, I think one of the key points to succeeding is that the leadership team really needs to believe in the importance of cross-BU collaboration, because even they are not being told as often that they need to collaborate. They need to see the gains. They need to explicitly create programs that bring different groups together from across BUs. And it doesn't have to be just like engineers focused on a problem. For instance, one of the things we do in EMC is to create management forums, where managers from across various different BUs come together to talk about various things. Sometimes it's an instructor-led session. Sometimes it's a joint activity around maybe how do you do goal planning or something. But the idea is to bring managers from different BUs together and just start the networking and getting them to know each other. So that's one of the several things that we need to do as a leadership team to make sure that cross-BU is in the focus. Cross-BU is a part of your day-to-day job. You talked about the 20% tax. Once you look at that as a tax, hey, should I let them spend 20% of their time doing something different, this cross-BU thing? That's never going to fly. I think the BUs are going to be too concerned about their own revenues, etc. It has to be made a situation where each of the BUs sees benefit in this. And hence, it should not be a tax, it should be just a normal part of the way you think, the way you interact.
Great. I think that's a great takeaway for the leadership. At a individual level, at the team level, what would be your recommendations to overcome some of the obstacles? I think Uresh did a great job in terms of giving a leadership thought, but at an individual team level, what do you think are some of the actionable items that can be worked upon?
In our company, we have a number of assets, software as well as hardware. Many times it so happens that the software team is focusing on what they have to deliver, and the hardware team is focusing on what they have to deliver. And many times that finally you need a hardware engine to have the software working and vice versa. So what we have done as part of a process is created a task force. Whenever there is a project kickoff, the individual members of the organization have to participate mandatorily in the kickoff just to make sure that you know exactly how the project is going to progress. Hardware is always the lead and software is always the lag because you need the hardware to make your software work. Alongside that, democracy or consensus is sometimes difficult because it doesn't work. So there has to be a kind of mandate sometimes saying this is how we are going to run our business. If you have to offer a solution to a customer and if you want to put the customer at the heart of your business, you cannot have three people going and talking to the customer about three different, let's say, modules or pieces of the business or solutions that we offer. There is always a task force that is created at a corporate level, and the task force job is to make sure that if there are three departments or three BUs selling a solution to a customer in Brazil, they all go together. They don't go one behind the other because then the customer never sees one face. So there's always a conscious effort to bring people together if you're going to a customer and making sure they go as a team. Otherwise, if one goes behind the other, it's always going to be, the other team is going to tell you what it is. So these are some of the bottom-up approach as I mentioned before.
Great. Anmol, if I were to ask you 3 things to avoid when it comes to cross-BU collaboration, what would those be?
Right. So the first one is aiming too low. And as we discussed in various parts before, a lot of times we try defining collaboration in a very narrow manner. Team starts taking, okay, define this one work item, 2 people technical sit together and we created some technical innovation, but it's a narrow form of defining collaboration. So really making sure that end game, end output, client value is really built in, which really makes the collaboration, cross-BU collaboration, a potential opportunity to create something bigger pool for the company. And if we can avoid that pitfall, it will create an opportunity which can grow bigger, which can start a journey. And a lot of times in that, need to start from a customer, need to start from a value and point of view. The second piece is, once the early success has started, which is okay, you figured it out something, you built something, you created one customer around it. The next step or next phase of the challenge starts happening is, whatever said and done, cross-BU has 2 parents, 3 parents, 5 parents. In the steady state of business, it needs to find one parent, needs to find a home, needs to stay there so that you have sustained level of funding, growth, opportunity to build that business. So a lot of times we believe that, okay, it can start cross-BU, but it needs to go home. and there is only one home. It will be one division which will probably will be feeding it, keeping it, staying it. If you continue to keep it outside as multi-parent orphan home, it's not going to, feeding is becoming very difficult and sustenance is becoming very difficult. So that becomes very quickly, it needs to find a home, it needs to find a place where the care and feeding will be taken care. And the third thing is the ability to really extend and scale. And a lot of times we do find technical ideas. I mean, in India's abundance every day, you will feel technical teams are coming together. You will find one or two customers also. People will end up home. But really ability to scale, ability to really build a substantial business out of it, and thereby demonstrate to the world that it started from a sapling and built a tree. That's the third pitfall, which is, and that has to be built on a very strong business acumen. And as we were hearing earlier, a lot of times this business acumen comes in terms of what is it where we invest upon and how can we really build that piece right from the start. So these three things in my mind are the biggest pitfalls, and how do you avoid it? And that's a level of persistent journey if you want to make real success.
Great, great. Thanks a lot for some expert advices today, and I think we have some excellent takeaways from the